Heading southwest of today's Russia, there used to be an underground base that was unnamed on any map. It hid terrible secrets throughout the Cold War from 1947 to 1991. The Soviet leaders and military experts were very proud of this underground base because during the long period of operation, American and Western intelligence had never known of its existence. Not a bit of information was leaked, and the press never collected any. Only after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 were the secrets about the underground base revealed to the public. So what secrets made the Soviet Union keep this base hidden for over half a century? In the spring of 1960, relations between Washington and Moscow deteriorated dramatically, as at that time typical countries like the Soviet Union and the US were in an extremely tense period of the Cold War. At that time, the nuclear test ban was in effect for the three countries of the Soviet Union, the US, and Britain. Taking advantage of the US's advantage in developing nuclear weapons at that time, they were very dangerous, and took advantage of the ban to expand their nuclear arsenal potential while the Soviet Union could no longer test to develop new nuclear weapons. But for the Soviet Union, what was extremely important was not only to ensure a balance of power, but also to create an advantage far superior to the US nuclear arsenal. But without testing they couldn't do that. As a result, the supreme leadership of the world passed a resolution to break out of the nuclear test ban in mid-July 1961. Then the design and manufacture project of the superbomb codenamed RDS-220 was launched in the secret city of Arzamas-16, 450 kilometers southwest of Moscow. This was the beginning of the largest nuclear weapons development center in the Soviet Union. According to the Military Today spokesman, Arzamas-16 was established in 1946. This was the first place to research, design and manufacture nuclear weapons for the Soviet Union. Initially, Design Bureau KB-11 was headquartered here to conduct nuclear weapons development activities. The research and design process began in 1947. To ensure absolute security and secrecy for the project, the Soviet Army built a 232 SQ-km fence around the area. In 1947, the administrative name of this area was removed from all official maps and statistical documents of the Soviet Union. The isolation of the area was completed in 1948. Notably, project planners often named secret areas similarly to nearby cities to avoid the prying eyes of enemy intelligence agencies. In terms of scale and technology, Arzamas-16 can be compared with the Los Alamos National Laboratory in the US, becoming the two largest nuclear weapons development centers in the world. Nowadays, the scale of the secret city is limited to the hexagonal area. The entire area is surrounded by a double-layer barbed wire fence. Security forces continuously patrol to ensure no entry or exit. The army forms a protective arc with a circumference of 40 kilometers outside the city and is closely monitored. Since the years of the Cold War, the outer ring has been protected by a surface-to-air missile regiment and other military and security units of the Ministry of Internal Affairs continuously patrolling. The city has some restricted areas inside, especially the nuclear material storage area. This area is surrounded by multiple walls and fences with installed sensor systems to detect suspicious objects. Engineers, scientists and others involved in the nuclear weapons development process, including family members, are not allowed to leave the city, even during vacation. This restriction was later lifted. They could go to the main city of Arzamas or other major cities like Moscow but had to travel on a special bus. Civilians in other parts of the Soviet Union were not allowed to come here, and of course Arzamas-16 was off limits to foreigners. Those living outside the city who wanted to visit relatives working inside had to go through a special clearance and permit procedure. New arrivals always had to comply with strict regulations such as signing a non-disclosure agreement about the location, research facilities or any production activities in the city. Residents living in the city had to obey very strict internal regulations, but in return, they received many privileges and benefits not available in other areas. Those working at nuclear facilities received much higher salaries, social welfare, and benefits compared to the national average. The crime rate was almost non-existent as no one would dare do anything foolish in a place where even your next-door neighbor had the risk of being military personnel or working undercover. Design Bureau KB-11 completed the development and successful testing of the first Soviet atomic bomb in 1949, and the first thermonuclear or hydrogen bomb in 1953. Arzamas-16 was the largest nuclear weapons research and development center of the Soviet Union. All nuclear weapons of Moscow were produced here. In addition, there was also the Institute of Experimental Physics, or VNIEF, in the city of Sarov, Nizhny Novgorod region, the organization primarily responsible for designing the RDS-220. It was established on May 5, 1955 to carry out nuclear weapons projects. Later, VNIEF designed and manufactured almost 100% of all nuclear bombs, nuclear missiles and nuclear torpedoes for the Soviet Army. The RDS-220 bomb was designed by a team of top Soviet physicists, headed by academicians Yuli Khariton and Yakov Zeldovich, along with famous scientists such as Andrei Sakharov, Viktor Adamski, Yuri Babayev, Yuri Smirnov, and Mila Kunis. Initially, the name for this project was Big Bomb, and then quite a few other names were assigned to the RDS-220, but to explain the name that is still used today, Tsar Bomba, according to UNESCO, in Russia and the Soviet Union at that time, large or grandiose objects were often given the prefix Tsar. Typical examples are Tsar Bell and Tsar Cannon. Moreover, it was sometimes also called Kuzma's mother, which could allude to Nikita Khrushchev's challenge to the United States to show Kuzma's mother to America at a 1960 session of the United Nations General Assembly. This phrase was based on a Russian idiom, meaning they would teach the opponent an unforgettable lesson, or more understandable when translated into Vietnamese as, in life, never look down on others. The Tsar Bomba was a hydrogen bomb using thermonuclear fusion reactions with enormous destructive power many times greater than atomic bombs. Atomic bombs work on the principle of splitting unstable heavy nuclei like uranium or plutonium into lighter nuclei, releasing energy in the form of heat, gamma radiation, and some neutrons. The Tsar Bomba was a two-stage bomb. First, an atomic bomb explodes to create the conditions for a thermonuclear reaction to occur. In this fusion reaction, two light nuclei of hydrogen combine to form one heavier helium nucleus, which is the reaction occurring on the Sun. However, since the nuclei are all positively charged and repel each other, enormous energy and extremely high temperatures are needed to bring them close enough together for fusion to happen. This condition can be achieved by detonating an atomic bomb. Yes, that's right, the Tsar Bomba was a double bomb. First, an atomic bomb explodes to create the conditions for the thermonuclear reaction to occur. This 27-ton, 8 m long and 2.1 m diameter bomb had a colossal yield of 50 megatons, equivalent to 50 million tons of TNT explosive. In fact, the original desired yield was 100 megatons, but researchers realized such a huge bomb would create dangerous radiation, affecting areas thousands of km away from the test site. Ultimately, the Tsar Bomba was manufactured with a 50 megaton yield, corresponding to 50 million tons of TNT explosive. Its destructive power was 3,800 times greater than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in World War II, yet there was no loss of human life from the detonation. According to experts, if the Tsar Bomba were dropped on Washington, D.C., it would blow away the entire metropolitan area and spread dangerous radiation as far as Baltimore, 350 km away. The success of the Tsar Bomba project far exceeded the expectations of the Soviet leadership. The detonation, with unprecedented destructive power up to that point, made an extremely strong impression on U.S. and Western leaders. The Soviet Union had successfully completed the mission of manufacturing a multi-megaton thermonuclear warhead for its nuclear arsenal. This forced U.S. and Western leaders to think more seriously about the capabilities of the Soviet military-industrial complex. And of course they had to reconsider their own military ambitions. The U.S. subsequently halted expanding megaton-class nuclear research and development programs, and on August 5, 1963, Washington and Moscow signed a treaty banning nuclear weapons tests in the atmosphere, in outer space and underwater. However, some historians believe it is quite possible there were still more horrific secret tests underground that remain unknown. And finally, the secret city of Arzamas-16 reappeared from 1994. Today it is known by the name Sarov. As of now, the population in this southwest city has grown to over 95,000 people. And of course, it has officially appeared on maps, ending 45 years of underground operation in the last century. The nuclear technology and weapons race between the US and Soviet Union during the Cold War ended, but Sarov still plays the role of one of Russia's strategic weapons centers going into the next generation.